The Commissioner has asked me to say to Londoners, please, as tempting as it is, do not have a barbecue tonight, even in your back garden, let alone a park or a balcony. Why? Because the heat we're experiencing, the dryness of the grass could mean you inadvertently start a fire, and that will spread incredibly fast.
Now, we just want to return to the heatwave story because of a major incident has been declared across the capital as firefighters continue to tackle several blazes across the capital. The Mayor, Sadiq Khan, says that it's not just summer weather, it's a climate emergency, and he joins us now. Sadiq Khan, welcome to the show. Your reaction to these extraordinary scenes that we're seeing, very worrying scenes that we're seeing across the capital today?
Good evening, Aisha. Well, I've spent most of today speaking to the London Fire Brigade, and I've just got off the phone speaking to the London Fire Commissioner, Andy Rowe. The reason why the London Fire Brigade have declared a major incident is because of the pressure they are under. To give you an idea of the pressure we're under, on a normal day, the Fire Brigade, on a normal busy day, receives between 300 and 350 calls a day. From midday until now, we've already received more than 1,600 calls. As I speak to you, there are 12 major fires across our city. One of the fires, 35 fire engines involved. Another fire has 20 fire engines involved. Another couple of fires have 12 fire engines involved. So we are really stretched. What normally would happen when the fire brigade in London is stretched is we could rely upon what's called mutual aid from those fire services outside of London to give us some support in terms of firefighters and fire engines. But I'm afraid all those fire services immediately outside London are themselves confronting major incidents in their areas. And so I'm really grateful for you allowing me to come on. I'm asking your listeners to do what they can to take some of the pressure off the fire service. The Commissioner has asked me to say to Londoners, please, as tempting as it is, do not have a barbecue tonight, even in your back garden, let alone a park or a balcony. Why? Because the heat we're experiencing, the dryness of the grass could mean you inadvertently start a fire, and that will spread incredibly fast. And the big concern we have is normally a fire engine would reach you within 6 minutes of you calling them. It's now taken on average more than 20 minutes because of the pressure we're under.
Well, thanks very much for coming on and giving us that message. I mean, people are very, very concerned about these fires. Are you worried that a point may come where resources are so stretched, particularly with firefighters in London and, as you say, in adjoining areas, that firefighters will not be able to adequately cover all the fires that are happening?
Well, at the moment, the fire service is ensuring they can cover all the fires that are happening, but that's one of the reasons why we've got to do our bit to help the fire service. The reality is they've been working their socks off all day. A new shift comes on at 9 o'clock. They've already cancelled training courses, cancelled other things that firefighters are supposed to be doing so they can be in their engines putting out fires. We've got the additional problem, I'm afraid, which is that Met Office is advising it's possible over the course of the next day or two, we could have really heavy rain in a short spread of time. The problem with heavy rain in a short spread of time is it can lead to flash flooding. This time last year, the fire service were dealing with the consequences of flash flooding, basement flats being flooded, businesses being flooded, tube stations being flooded. So the additional concern we have, if we inadvertently create extra work for the fire service through, accidents happen, that could lead to challenges over the next few days. So in addition to my messages around, not having a bottle near a grass because it magnifies the rays, as tempting as it is in this hot weather to jump in the River Thames or jump in a canal or jump in a water, don't do so. Why? Cold water shock, but also you could be sucked under, and that creates further work for the fire service and for others as well. We've got to do our bit during this heat wave. We're seeing temperatures never seen in my lifetime to support the fire service during this difficult time.
And as Mayor of London, what do you think this city is going to have to do to long-term just cope with the extreme weather that we are seeing? Because sadly, it does look like we are getting hotter and hotter with our summers. We're getting this extreme heat. How do you think our infrastructure, our buildings, our public transport, how do you think this city is going to adapt to climate change?
But I think you raised an incredibly profound issue, and that's one of the issues where I would hope we get some answers from those running to be the Prime Minister. What do I mean by that? What we're seeing today and yesterday is a direct consequence of climate change. It's unarguable now. What you've seen across Europe in relation to the wildfires, what you've seen in London in relation to the grass fires and other fires, the temperatures we're seeing of 40 degrees is a direct consequence of climate change. So you're right. We've got to, on the one hand, deal with the symptoms of climate change, adapting our city in terms of retrofitting, adapting people's homes, places of work, public transport, planting more trees, having cooling areas, more water fountains, and so forth. Symptoms, but you've got to deal with the causes. You've got to deal with the causes. The idea that those running to be the Prime Minister are kicking the can down the road just beggars belief, where when they're doing this contest in the middle of a heat wave, what they should be doing is sprinting towards net zero. And the added bonus of doing so is it reduces their energy bills. If people's homes are better insulated, have better cooling systems, have better glazing in their windows, their bills are less large than they currently are. If we have sustainable forms of energy, wind and solar, it creates jobs, but also it means we're not relying upon Putin's Russia or Qatar or Saudi Arabia. So I don't understand why the government isn't invested in retrofitting our city, adaptations, creating jobs in these electric buses, but also dealing with the causes as well and the consequences.
A question that's just come in from one of our listeners, Mayor, is: are there any plans for air conditioning on the tube? It has been particularly atrocious over the last few days.
Yeah, so the new Elizabeth line is fully air conditioned, but also many of the 4 lines in central London are being modernised as I speak. District and Circle already has air cooling systems. 192 trains have air cooling systems, but the challenge we have in London is that underground is the oldest in the world. These are Victorian tunnels, which are very small, and so the opportunity to have air conditioning only happens when we get new trains, and we can't buy new trains when Grant Shapps is refusing to meet with me, instead spending his time going to parties and checkers. So I'm asking Shapps to meet with me, to agree a long-term capital deal for London, to buy more electric buses with air cooling systems that work, to invest in more trains in the underground. And these trains and buses, by the way, not only help us stay cool in this really hot weather, but they create jobs around the country as well and help us get to net zero carbon sooner rather than later.
You mentioned Grant Shapps. The Prime Minister was due to be attend. There was a Cobra meeting over the weekend on the extreme heat, but it looked like the Prime Minister missed that and was entertaining guests at Chequers. What's your message to the Prime Minister?
So I chaired a London Cobra on Friday, and this weekend I had a really good conversation with Greg Clark, the cabinet member for community and local government. So I know some members of the government are working incredibly hard, as they should be, but you're the Prime Minister. You've got to be chairing Cobra. When we know at the previous heat wave 2 years ago, there were more than 2,600 deaths. When the chief medical officer is saying this heat wave is a potential threat to life, not just pensioners and all vulnerable people, but all life. And that's why it's really important that when you're the Prime Minister and you're so desperate to cling to power, you do the job. The idea that as the Prime Minister during a level 4 red alert, the Met Office has never given a level 4 red alert in its history, is trying to be Tom Cruise, taking selfies in a typhoon plane and having a lavish banquet in Chequers, just illustrates what sort of guy we have as our Prime Minister.
And final couple of questions to you, Mayor. I mean, lots of people will absolutely agree about the climate emergency, but there is also real concern about the cost of living and the increasing fuel bills. Some of the leadership candidates are talking about reducing some of the green levies to try and help people keep more money in their pockets. Do you have any sympathy with that argument? Because it's a quite a difficult balance, doing the right thing on the environment long term, but also people are really feeling this punishing cost of living squeeze right now.
I've seen no evidence that those candidates aspiring to be the Prime Minister or the Conservative government believe we're in a climate emergency. Right? I've seen no evidence of that. And I think, you now have in the Conservative Party a combination of climate change deniers and climate change delayers. We need doers. And by the way, addressing the climate emergency helps solve some of these problems. Why are people having big bills when it comes to their energy, whether it's electricity or gas? Answer: their homes are poorly insulated, they have single glazing, they're energy inefficient homes, right? What we could be doing is having a green levy that pays for those people who can't afford to insulate their homes, can't afford to have double glazing, to do so. And the advantage of us supporting them through Green Levy to do so is it brings their bills down, but also reduces carbon emissions and create jobs. It's a win, win, win. What the government's doing instead is kicking this can down the road. So I'll be coming back on Times Radio, I'm afraid, in future weeks and years, talking about some of the consequences of the climate emergency, rather than dealing with it, the symptoms and the causes as well. And I'll tell you this: if the government was to instead invest in electric buses, instead invest in new air-conditioned trains, invested instead solar and wind, invested instead in energy efficiency programs like retrofitting our homes and our places of work, we'd be creating jobs, people are paying more taxes, more revenues coming in, and reducing energy bills and addressing the cost of living crisis.
And Sadiq, final question to you. The Conservative leadership race is underway, as you have alluded to, and the next Prime Minister of this country, and indeed leader of the Conservative Party, is likely to be either its third woman or its first ethnic minority Prime Minister. How do you feel as a Labour person? You, of course, are our first Muslim mayor in terms of the Mayor of London. But do you think Labour needs to up its game when it comes to diversity, when you look at how the Conservatives are doing right now in terms of leadership positions?
Without a doubt. Listen, you've got to put party politics aside. I'm proud when our Prime Minister is a woman. Put aside party politics. When Theresa May was the Prime Minister, as a father of two daughters, it gave me a huge sense of pride that it told them that their gender wouldn't stop them being the Prime Minister. It's no source of comfort for me that the first ever female cabinet minister was Labour, or the first ever black man in cabinet was Labour, or the first ever openly gay person was Labour, or the first Muslim minister, by the way, was Labour, because the Tories are making good progress as well. And actually, I think, Aisha, there should be almost like an arms race in relation to which party can do a better job representing all of our country: women, ethnic minorities, those who are from the LGBTQ plus community, those who are disabled, and credit where it's due. The Conservatives could have either their third female Prime Minister. We've not had our first permanent one. Margaret and Harriet did a good job as interim leaders of our party, or they could have the first ethnic minority Prime Minister we've ever seen in our country. And by the way, not just an ethnic minority, but a religious minority as well. And I think we shouldn't as those on the left, those who are Labour, run away from the fact that is impressive.
Well, listen, we know you're very busy. We're very grateful for your time this afternoon. Thanks for speaking with Times Radio.
Stay safe.